Okay, well, we're just going to get started just with the intro so we don't take up too much of everyone's time. But, I usually do to give a 5-minute intro. So as people are popping in, it's totally fine. But hello, everyone. My name is Chloe. I am the lead facilitator for the NEAR Certified Researcher Program. And so if you'd like to find out more information about the program, as always, I will be using the Telegram thread for the NEAR Certified Researcher to drop notes. So here you go. I'll drop a link there. So if anyone wants to find more information about the course, whether it's the course overview, adding the course to the calendar, please feel free to pop into this page. The idea for those that may be coming in for the first time or finding this recording is to understand the fundamentals of blockchain, Web3, and NEAR protocol. So we are now on Module 3, Specialized Topics in Blockchain, and we are moving on to Class 8, Non-Fungible Tokens. So we're probably going to stay a little bit outside of market trends, although Jordan might pop into that a bit more, and valuation models. I'm going to try and give more of a background for maybe where NFTs came from, what was the purpose for them, maybe a bit of how they're used today, and how students can start getting involved with creating some of their own NFTs, transferring them to others. And for this course, every student is going to have to mint an NFT as their final project. So all of these papers that I'm going to be going over in a bit from all of these students here, we have about 10 papers submitted so far. These are eventually going to become NFTs on mint day, which is pretty cool. So as we hop into this, so before we hop into the course for today, which is Class 8 or going over NFTs, I just wanted to go back to Class 5 where we went over research topic identification. I will drop this link in the chat as well, because every student here should be able to scroll down and see. I tried to do everyone's NEAR account. Some people, I still have their Telegram name. I'll try and update these two. But if you do not see a little dash, so basically what this means, if there's no dash beside your article, it means that the submitter in question has submitted a full homework assignment so far. They've gone through a full round of commenting, and the majority of the base level content is in the paper. So there's the author's name is included. There's hyperlinks throughout. So for example, just click on one. So the author's name and NEAR name is arguably more important than your actual given name, especially for this, but you can put both names if you want. Hyperlinks throughout the paper, right? Headings are great as well. Introduction, new property rights, and then your sources. So again, it only has to be a one-page article for now. Obviously, the idea is trying to expand on the article as we go, and I'll be leaving comments each week over these papers. So for example, maybe numbering the sources in alphabetical order, so it's easier for someone who finds this paper to see what sources were used, and then continuing to flesh out some of these ideas. But honestly, this is great so far, and this is what we're kind of hoping to see by this stage in the course. So if you kind of scroll through here and you do not see your name at all, but you did hand in an assignment, please ping me. I'll add your assignment here. If you're looking here and you see a small tick beside the paper, that just means that there are still some comments to go through. So here you can see there's quite a few comments still left. So my way of tracking that is just just a little tick for myself, but also for students to know, okay, maybe I should go back in and make some comments. And just in case people are curious, there is class incentives being distributed as well. So for the first submission of the assignment, there's 0.819 NEAR being distributed to the student, mainly to support with gas fees, storage fees, as students might want to explore other applications on the NEAR protocol or other ecosystems. You can use a bridge and so forth. And then as students kind of continue to work on their paper, there's additional incentives or bounties distributed, again, to continue that exploration. So for example, if someone's talking about blockchain and digital property, maybe they want to interact with a digital property application. Maybe that application is not on NEAR, it's on Ethereum. So over time, sorry if you can hear that, but over time, the rewards from working on the assignments should help students to be able to test out other applications and add that information to their papers. Hopefully that's clear. If any questions, please feel free to ask either in the chat or you can unmute and ask as well. But we're going to move on from week 5 overview and move on to class 8. So thank you everyone for coming along so far. We've been 8 weeks so far of classes, so quite a large accomplishment in my opinion for anyone. That's about 2 weeks of consistent engagement with the course, so it's very much appreciated. Our guest lecturer for today is going to be Jordan Starpaz, very active throughout the NEAR ecosystem in a variety of ways. I don't want to kind of spoil too much, but I've been working with Jordan for quite a while, whether it was NEAR Foundation or working on DAO tooling on NEAR. And so very excited to, and Jordan's one of the people that worked on Tank, one of the first kind of NFT, I guess, distribution platforms on NEAR, where people are able to do NFT collections and still some good successes there. So it'll be interesting to see some perspectives from Jordan. But for participants of the class should be able to gain an understanding of NFT fundamentals. So I'll be focusing on that aspect. Just like if you're talking to someone in a conversation and they bring up NFTs, what are some points of conversation to bring up? Specifically talking about the NFT ecosystem on NEAR. So obviously maybe you've heard of OpenSea or Rarible or these kind of incumbent NFT platforms from Ethereum or from other blockchains. But the idea is, how do NFT platforms differ on NEAR? How are they the same? And then this part, more on the practical use case of NFTs. And I think it's hopefully up to students. There is actually a research project going on right now, led by Ernest and the research collective team, going over some of this, exploring market trends and valuation models. Okay, so if it's hard to hear me, so I'm not fully sure, after the videos go up on YouTube, there is an auto transcript in English, but I will try and fix my audio effects. So please let me know if it gets better or worse, and I'll try and fix it real quick before we keep going. Okay. Yeah, sorry, I know that was terrible. I'm sorry for that, for everyone who had to hear that. But is this any better? Is this any worse? Is this the same as it was at the beginning of class? Okay, sounds good. So sorry about that. Thank you very much, Will, for the comment. Much appreciated. Hopefully that can be heard a little bit better now. So that we have some pre-reading material here, mainly going over the previous classes. I did bring up one paper that, as always, I'm not going to go through the entire paper in class, but I did think it was, a pretty, when we're talking about like, practical uses of NFTs, I think, this is kind of one of the main ones that I don't think exists, at least not in a very acceptable way in the NEAR ecosystem. So this paper is called Blockchain and NFTs for Time-Bound Access and Monetization of Private Data. Kind of a mouthful, but all it's really talking is about the ability to use blockchain. So for example, NEAR protocol and NFTs, we're going to talk about that today. Just NFTs are just unique representations of data on the blockchain, I suppose. So we'll go through it a bit more specifically, but the main difference between NFTs and then so non-fungible tokens, NFTs, and then fungible tokens, FTs, we don't really call them that, but still, is the fact that fungible tokens, like let's say the NEAR token, is able to be distributed and traded without caring about the underlying asset. So for example, I just tipped Will 0.19 NEAR tokens, and Will arguably shouldn't care too much where those NEAR tokens came from, which ones they are. There's billions of NEAR tokens, and arguably Will doesn't really care which NEAR tokens they're getting, because they're all going to be swapped. They can all be accepted in the same way on decentralized exchanges or other platforms, and they can all be swapped in similar ways. Now, arguably, not every blockchain token is a fungible token. Or some of them might be semi-fungible. For example, Bitcoin, BTC, because of its account model, it's a bit too detailed to go. If you have questions, please ask. But because of its account model, not all Bitcoins are the same. And so one major example is if you mine some Bitcoin, so it'll be like clean Bitcoin, and you throw it through a mixer, basically trying to hide where that Bitcoin came from, so no one can tell who mined it or who was the previous owner of that Bitcoin. Well, now you could have like dirty Bitcoin, right? Certain regulators, certain exchanges might no longer accept that Bitcoin because of its like transaction history from the past. So arguably, not every Bitcoin is the same. If I get actually Bitcoin from miners, like fresh, clean Bitcoin, actually has a premium on the market many times because larger institutional members of the ecosystem don't have to worry about the legal issues behind that. So just quickly explaining that not every coin is fungible, but that's kind of how it works. The whole idea of time-bound access is just saying that, for example, if I sell an NFT to Clara, that would give access to certain data, right? Access to certain private data. So if Clara does not have the NFT, Clara cannot access this data. And the idea is maybe Clara would only have access for a certain period of time. So this could be thought of as maybe a journal subscription where someone can buy an NFT on a certain blockchain like Near, get access maybe to a journal, which would be the private data for a month. And that would allow someone a journalist to monetize that private data. Now, this could be thought of for, artists who want to do, so as I said, all videos from the class will be uploaded to YouTube, and then people will be able to get an auto transcript there. So generally, the idea is quite simple. The paper goes into an actual approach for how this could work, what NFTs are. So in this paper, we propose using blockchain technology and NFTs to enable time-bound access and much private data. Our approach allows users to upload encrypted content. So the idea is that the first step is that there's some content that needs to be hidden, so it needs to be encrypted. So similar to using cryptography to do this, right? And mint it into NFTs. So the NFT is just the standard for how this is done. What's really happening in the background is there's some encrypted data that's being put into this standard. Other users can access the NFT's content by requesting a purchase or a license, right? So in the Web 2 world, we would call this a licensing agreement, or you have a license to access the data. In the Web 3 world, potentially, you could still have licenses, but potentially you could have it be all done by a smart contract. Once someone has access to the NFT, they immediately have access to the data. Now, a license can still be important because you could imagine someone might only have a month of time-bound access, but they could record that data onto their personal machine, for example, their laptop or their phone, and then still disseminate that data or just distribute it after without the rights to do so. So a license is still useful, so that there's still legal protections for the creator and the owner of this private data. So the blockchain doesn't solve every problem, but it does allow potentially for a more seamless process. So purchasing the content transfers the ownership of the NFT to the buyer, whereas licensing permits accessing the private data for a limited period of time. So after which the data gets automatically deleted. So they're actually using an idea where you can actually download the data, it gets deleted from a license, which is pretty cool as well. And if you find this interesting, please read a bit more. There is a platform that has a similar approach on Near. It is a semi-NSFW platform. And so I'll share it at the end of class for those that are interested. I just don't want it to be, if people don't want to, engage in that type of content, then we won't go through it during class time. Okay, so that's a bit about an article that you guys can read and go through yourself. Sorry about that. I did want to share the article. So for those that want to follow on their own, please feel free to read through the paper, and then let's move on. So I'm going to give a quick overview of kind of where NFTs came from Ethereum, how things have changed when when the Near blockchain came out and the NFT standard was being created on Near, and then we're kind of going to move into a little bit of a deeper dive. So for those that maybe are less technical, you might have never read an EIP, you might have also never read an NEP, but Ethereum has Ethereum improvement proposals to try and standardize how people interact with the blockchain. Within these standard or proposals is the ERC 721 standard for non-fungible tokens. Now, you don't need to know much of what this is saying, but in my opinion, it gets kind of technical once you get into the specification. So if you're not a developer, it might be a little bit confusing. But again, there's comments for all of this, right? So it's telling you this is the function that's being called, or this is an event that's available. Still function, I guess. Or anyways, the transfer function, or it's the event for transfer, and this is the information. But you can just read this part. You don't have to read the code. For example, this emits when ownership, so it's an event that's emitted when ownership of an NFT changes by any mechanism. So any transfer of an NFT, there's going to be an event that it emits an address that it came from, an address that it was sent to, and then some uint, right, unsigned integer of 256 bits, and then that's going to be the token ID, right? So every blockchain arguably has similar setup to, and this is how the events are handled. But what is useful to go through right away is the abstract and the motivation. I'm going to stick with the motivation for now. But again, I know we have people writing about physical, anyways, motivation. The standard interface allows wallet, broker, auction applications to work with any NFT on Ethereum. The idea is these applications already existed, but they didn't have a simple way to work with non-fungible tokens. And this standard allows for all these applications to work seamlessly within this standard. We provide a simple ERC 721 smart contract, as well as contracts that link an arbitrary large number of NFTs. Additional applications are discussed below. So this specification will not only tell you the technical aspects of what the standard does, but also why they created the standard, which I think is really helpful as researchers to understand why was it created and is it bringing about these applications now. This standard is inspired by the ERC20 token standard, which is the fungible token standard. So for example, DAI or USDC, USD stablecoins, those use the ERC20 token standard generally. There's other standards as well. And they're saying the fungible token standard, EIP20, is insufficient for tracking NFTs because each asset is distinct, non-fungible, whereas each quantity of the token is identical, fungible. So they're saying that arguably each token is unique. Even if you have an NFT where you make 100 copies of it, each copy is still unique. You could imagine an artist having an edition where they paint 20 copies of an artwork. Each copy might have a different value to it. Maybe someone really wants copy number 1 because they think this is the first one that was made, or they don't want the last copy because they might feel like the artist got better over time and the last one has the most value. Either way, because they're indexed, they're not identical and they have a certain value. Okay, so that's the motivation for why the very first NFT standard came about. So we've seen the plethora of virtual collectibles come out. Like a lot of times in gaming, we talked about this previously, or next week, where we see like Axie Infinity and other large projects use NFTs to signify collectibles and like gaming assets. We see physical property. I know Real IT, is that it? Let's see if this works. Okay, yeah, so Real IT, for example, one of the first, first applications that I knew of on Ethereum where you could actually buy a house or buy fractions of a house as an NFT, or so this one has 22% return, expected income, capital ROI, whatever. You can go through all of this. This has been around for a few years now, and so that's a way, for example, I'll drop that link in the chat for those that might want to learn about, okay, well, how does this kind of work? And this is not built on Near, and it says anyone around the globe can invest into US real estate. That is the value proposition. And so, for example, maybe this is an idea for research that a student wants to take on. How does this work? How might this work in your local jurisdiction, right? And maybe by working on a project like this, you can actually work with local banks, local real estate corporations, and figure out how you can bring in more investors for their projects. But that's an example of why NFTs are used. And then negative value assets. So for example, Uniswap actually does similar as this, where it's not necessarily negative value, but when you deposit liquidity into Uniswap, which a decentralized exchange on many chains, but starting on Ethereum, they will mint an NFT for you that represents the value of the asset. I'm not sure if I can find that. Just to find an example, I think someone's unmuted. Maybe a question. Will? Is that a question, or is that an accidental unmute? I'm going to assume it's accidental. I can't hear a question, so sadly I will meet you, just because it's a bit distracting. But feel free to comment in the chat, Will, and I'll get you unmuted if you'd like to speak. So this is an example. I'll drop the link as well, because when I first saw this years ago, I thought it was one of the coolest things in the world. But pretty much all the information for the liquidity is here. So it was on Uniswap, right? 0.3% was the fees. It was for the ENS token, the Ethereum name service, and wrapped Ethereum. And it kind of shows you like the minimum price you're going to work with. So the minimum price all the way up to 88 tokens. And it actually has all this information. So, I mean, people here probably have seen NFTs before, but all this is here, automatically generated. This NFT represents a liquidity position in Uniswap. In the pool, the owner can modify or redeem the position. So anyone who owns the NFT owns the position. So all I would have to do is send this NFT to someone else, right? And they would automatically own this liquidity position. Switch over to how things work. Sorry, just gonna, close tab. To how things work on Near, because it's a little bit different. I'll go through the motivation, which is a bit longer, but then I will try and tackle the differences as well. So this standard was created 3 years after the Ethereum NFT standard. And then within this period of time, NFTs have definitely proven themselves in a variety of ways, right? So we've seen, like, when the first NFT standard came out on Ethereum, there weren't many applications that existed yet. The standard writers did their best job to create what they thought would be useful. Well, now, actually, there was a lot of things to look at, whether it was collectibles, art, gaming, finance, virtual realty, so the metaverse, real estate, and more. So I think virtual realty took off for a little bit. Meta was doing its thing, maybe died down a bit, but still a valuable proposition for NFTs. So this standard goes off the lessons learned in this early experimentation and pushes the possibilities further because of some specifics on Near. So some of those specifics we've talked about in the past are on Ethereum, everything is atomic transaction. So everything's happening in the same block. You're not worried about transferring an NFT to someone and the next block happens and it hasn't gotten there yet. And so you don't know if the funding should be received. It's, Near is asynchronous and sharded, which is even more difficult at times. So for example, this kind of gets a bit confusing, but with Near, for example, you could have certain transactions that happen in the same block. So for example, if I am calling one transaction from it within itself, I can have everything happen in one block, but different contracts could be on different shards. So the easiest way to think about this is that you're trying to get something from your local supermarket, but this supermarket can change cities all the time as well. So contracts, these contracts, these things you want to access could be on a different shard or a different city than where you are. So your account can be on shard 1, the supermarket or where you want to interact with can be on shard 2, which means it's always going to take some time to get there. And also, each thing you want to interact with, so you can be on shard 1, the grocery store can be on shard 2, and the gas station can be on shard 3 that you want to hit after. And so as you interact on Near, your one transaction can interact with multiple different shards in multiple different blocks, but also multiple contracts can be executing at the same time in different shards. So if you have like a mint-based contract on one shard and then a different NFT aggregator on a different shard, when someone buys an NFT on one shard, for example, that might cause issues, and so that had to be fixed in the standard. Also, Near has storage staking. If you interact on Near often, you might see a storage fee on a lot of your transactions. And you also see a gas fee. So because of this additional storage fee or storage staking, the standard for Near had to be a little bit different, because on Ethereum, you don't really have storage staking in the same way. You kind of only have gas fees for the user. So given these differences or attributes, the NFT standard can accomplish with one user interaction things for which other blockchains need 2 or 3. One of the coolest ones, I think, is the NFT transfer call, where pretty much, instead of just transferring like we saw in the Ethereum specification, you could add arbitrary data, and basically this call action can do a bunch of other things, right? So you can attach a token to a call. So all the call means is a function call. So you want to have it when you transfer an NFT to somebody. It also might, add them to a DAO role, for example, so that when someone buys a membership NFT for your DAO, you can raise funds that way for a nonprofit, for example, by selling memberships. Maybe you have someone automatically be added to a DAO role. That is possible on Near as well. So I'm not going to go, again, too much into everything else that's possible, but this can be useful for people to go through to understand how this actually works, what the call means as well. As you go a bit deeper into the paper, again, you could read more what's going on. There's comments for everything. It does get a bit technical, but there is comments to go through. One of the major differences I wanted to make sure I went over, though, is royalties and payouts. So the standard here still has an event standard, just like Ethereum. When NFTs are transferred on Near, there's an event that goes out saying which account owned it, which account it went to, and all that information. But what is not included in Ethereum, or from my understanding, no other blockchains have this as a standard. Many blockchains might have NFT exchanges or marketplaces come together and agree on royalties, or artists might say, we agree royalties should be this way. But from what I know, at least so far, Near is one of the only blockchain that goes as far as to say we need a standard for this, so that, as we saw with an NFT standard, it allows all these applications to easily integrate with NFTs. The royalty standards and, I guess, payout standard allows for all these applications to easily integrate with royalties. And so whether you go on Paros.id, whether you go on mintbase.xyz, or any other NFT platform on Near, they should have a simple way to add royalties because of this standard. So again, I'll go through the motivation, and then people that want to learn more, please continue to dig in. If you're more technical, there's a lot of great information here. You could even read this on GitHub. And let's see, they have it here. So sad. Where's the GitHub link? The GitHub link is better in my opinion. I'll try and find it for people that want to look into it, because the GitHub link, there you go, will show NFTs. So this should also have the people. It does not have this is not the actual. Wait, there you go. History. My bad. And so now you can see who worked on each NEP, which could be helpful as well. You can see NEPs being worked on, things that are, did not pass checks, and stuff like that. So new NEPs, again, this gets a little bit more technical, but this is kind of where you would look to find more information. So I will drop the GitHub as well for the students that you want to look into that. But for the royalties, so currently NFTs on Near support the field owner ID, but lack flexibility for ownership and payout mechanics with more complexity, including but not limited to royalties. Financial contracts such as marketplaces, auction houses, and NFT loan contracts would benefit from a standard interface on NFT producer contracts for querying whom to pay out and how much to pay. So basically what they're saying is the NFT standard already exists. Lots of applications have been created for this, but there's not a simple way of figuring out how to pay people out. So therefore, the core goal of the standard is to determine a set of methods, so functions that can be called in the blockchain for financial contracts to call. Remember, these calls are just functions that can be called or methods that can be called on contracts without specifying how NFT contracts define the divide of payout mechanics and a standard payout response structure. So with standards, they're not trying to get into the nitty-gritty of how applications want to do things. They're trying to create a standard that everyone can build on top of. And we see the standard in action, and I'll show it as we go through the homework a bit later. But for now, I do want to take a step back, move on to a presentation from Jordan. So feel free to take over the screen share, Jordan. You can do an introduction if you'd like. And you have us for the next 25, 30 minutes as you see fit.
Cool, thank you. Let's see. Taking over the screen. I'm not sure exactly how to do that.
So in the bottom left, there should be, or in the sandwich bar. Sandwich bar should have a screen share.
Sandwich. Cool.
There we go. I can see your screen.
Yay. Yeah, I'm gonna go over, I guess, kind of some of the more applications and history of NFTs on Near, and for me, this is kind of the introduction because this is how I got into blockchain in general, was through NFTs. I have run an art and technology nonprofit for over 12 years, and when the pandemic was happening and we weren't able to have our festival in real life that we would do every year, our curator that year, Lisa Kolb, suggested, hey, why don't we try out these NFTs and see what this is all about as a means of supporting the artists. So for me, that was my introduction to kind of blockchain and how all of this fit into capturing real world value. And for me, that's what a lot of blockchain is about that capture of value and doing it in new and exciting ways. So through Kodame, we partnered with Paras and did a set of cards to commemorate our 10-year anniversary. And those are still available on Paras. You can still collect them today. And Paras was one of the first NFT marketplaces on Near. It actually started out as a social platform and then became an NFT marketplace. And it's really interesting because those standards that Chloe was talking about came about through the collaboration of Paras and Mintbase and Tank and other early ecosystem innovators, where everybody was just looking at existing standards on other chains and figuring it out together, what that standard needed to look like. So Paras actually implemented NFTs basically before the standard, and then had an event on chain where they took everything from their previous way of doing things and then moved it over to the standard. And I mention that because while we have standards, and standards are great for interoperability and being able to have composable assets that can be used across different dApps and applications in a permissionless way, it's also possible to use blockchain and smart contracts in new and undiscovered ways. You can write contracts to represent assets, however you can imagine. And I think that especially for artists, that's a very interesting prospect, to look at the blockchain as a material and to think about, like, what does this material actually mean? I think that that's an interesting question, because without art and without culture, all of these technologies don't really have context and don't really have any meaning for humans. So while standards are great, I also encourage people to think about non-standard ways of looking at things like assets. And that's something that we celebrate at Codeme, just thinking about these things in general. We're working towards our festival this year, which is going to be all over the world. That's kind of our theme with Essence. Is my co-founder Bruno moved to Milan, Italy. So here in San Francisco, we'll have events. In Milan, Italy, we'll have events. And if you're interested in exploring art and technology, hosting a workshop, getting artists together to think about technology and NFTs, things like that, get in touch. We have a forum for people who want to participate as artists or as a host of an event in your own city. And the idea with this Art and Tech Festival being everywhere is that no matter where you are, you can find peers who are excited about the same thing as you and kick off discussions and collaborations anywhere in the world. So that's kind of my introduction. It was very, very long-winded, but covered a bit there about kind of how I got into this space. And then we can move on to, let's see, next we've got, I wanted to talk about kind of like open source tooling in the ecosystem and some of those, I was mentioning like the utility and the composability, some of the things that are possible with that. And Mintbase is really pushing on this and driving it forward, where there are a bunch of templates which are very easy to clone. So if somebody does have NFTs and they want to start adding utility around those NFTs, these templates exist so that people can easily add things like being able to blog with their NFTs or like do AI chat around NFTs, using Stripe to interact with NFTs. And there's also an opportunity to build even more utility around those NFTs with the open bounties that exist. And there's certain things that people have kind of bubbled up as interesting things to build. But then there's also the open bounty where if somebody has an idea of how to add utility at NFTs, can put forth the idea and discuss with the community, and if it sounds good, then can move ahead with actually building that out. So this is one way where that composability actually comes into play, where because we've got those standards and it's permissionless, any dApp that gets built, any game or utility can get built around it, and that works for all of the NFTs on the chain that have been issued under the standard. Another example of that is the Paras NFT farming contract. So this is another open source bit of technology, and what this does is it allows you to stake your NFTs. So say you minted an NFT, you stake it, and then the contract can emit fungible tokens or other rewards for people who stake their NFTs. And this is a very common utility that we see being provided by NFT projects. And it's also one of those things where it's really great for partnerships, because as an NFT project, you can partner with all of the different people who are releasing fungible tokens on the chain, and month by month go through partners and have different activations and connect with communities who are all around in your ecosystem. Another bit of open source technology is the tank contracts. Chloe mentioned these, and the deal with the tank contracts are for doing raffles. So if you think about like a 10K collection of profile pictures or something like that, this contract and front end, you can fork these and do your own version of that, where a user comes and they can mint and they get a random asset out of the collection. And this drove a lot of the NFT sales and the uptick in volume and an influx of users from different chains. So these contracts have been used. They're not exactly audited, but several people have used them for launches, and they've been cloned for other launch pads and things like that as well. So if you're looking for kind of a tried and true raffle contract, Tank is the place to go. And there's a discussion section for If you run into implementation issues as you're cloning it or whatever else, there's a place to go and discuss those things as you're getting your project off the ground. And there is a lot more open source resources around, but in the interest of time, we'll move on to some more tangible like marketplaces. So you've got an NFT, now what? One of the more interesting marketplaces that's launched lately is MIDI, and I'm hoping I'm saying that right, MIDI.gg. And the idea here is that since NFTs are assets and since collections exist for any of the collections that have been onboarded to the platform, you can trade those kind of in bulk, where if you had bought like 10 double dogs or something and you wanted to be able to sell them instantly, all of these offers exist. So you have liquidity for your NFTs all of a sudden. One of the issues with NFTs in general as an asset class is that because they're unique and because each one is non-fungible, one is different than another one, a lot of the times people don't see the value of NFTs as equal, even inside of the same collection, and that prevents the liquidity from happening where it's easy to sell NFTs as a liquid asset, be able to get money back from like going in on an NFT collection or something like that. So MIDI really addresses that, making it very easy to sell off NFTs. If you have, a bunch of double dogs, you can get 6.5 near, 6.4 near, 6.2 near. You can sell off as many of the NFTs as you have. So 9 people are willing to buy these double dogs at 6.5 near. If you happen to have 9 of them, you can get exactly that much near out. Previous to that, a lot of the NFT trading and marketplace activity happened on interfaces like Tradeport, where it's buying NFTs one by one. And you see here that, you can select multiple NFTs to buy them, but there's not like sweep functions. Oh, it does have a sweep function. That's pretty sweet. Look at that. I'm learning something new by teaching. That's the best. And what Tradeport does that you don't necessarily get on MIDI or some of the other marketplaces are the analytics that show you the history of the prices and some of the offers and things like that. So if you are interested in seeing the history of a collection, this is a great place to go and check out kind of the action of NFTs. And that's not an unusual shape for a lot of things in crypto. There's a lot of interest at the start and then a long tail of trading after that. So MIDI, Tradeport, another marketplace is Bodega. And what's interesting about Bodega is that it has the idea of dynamic NFTs. So inside of the marketplace, Cafe Citizens is the first example collection of this. The NFTs are dynamic, and you can trade assets on the NFTs, not just the whole NFT at once, but you can trade like a background or the eyes or the headwear, the base colors, things like that. And dynamic NFTs are wildly unexplored. I think that they open up a lot of possibilities. Just because an asset is non-fungible, meaning that it's unique, doesn't mean that it's not dynamic, which means that it can change over time in its own unique way. So I think that more accurately models real-world assets, and that they do change over time. Time has its way of working with real-world assets as they change hands and get stickers on them and get cooler, or maybe they break and get worse. But real-world assets tend to change over time, even as they're unique. So having dynamic NFTs is an interesting corollary to that. So I think that there's a lot of ways of using dynamic NFTs that we can look forward to exploring in the future. And then, of course, have to mention the Mint-based marketplace. And one of the most exciting things about the Mint-based marketplace is that they have the affiliate program. So they have referral links. Any NFT on Mintbase that's for sale, you can go on that page and copy the affiliate direct link and share that. And then if that NFT sells, you get half of the trade cost. So, or the commission from the trade. Normally, Mintbase takes 2.5% of every sale that happens on the marketplace. And if you use your affiliate direct link, then you get half of that. So you get 1.25% of the sale for whatever NFT you helped promote, basically. So if you're looking for an easy way to start interacting with NFTs, this is a great place to start, because you can just share any NFT that looks cool to you and potentially start earning just by sharing what you love immediately. Like that. So that takes us through like some marketplace examples. There are more marketplaces out there, but gonna move on to virtual worlds. And when we talk about NFTs, we're talking about non-fungible assets, so kind of like modeling a real world asset. And then it kind of comes full loop when we have those non-fungible assets then represented in virtual worlds. So we took the real world, we modeled real world objects using non-fungible tokens, and now we're modeling the real world in a virtual world and putting those non-fungible assets inside of those worlds. So it's kind of a full loop. New Art City is one of the more interesting platforms where you can create worlds and place NFTs in them. And this is great for artists and art organizations like Kodame, where we've been able to like create this world for an art show, and we have openings in here, and it's multi-user, so many people can like come in and enjoy this world together and check out all the different art. There's Doomslug celebrating the consensus model on Near. And then there's other virtual worlds as well. So, yep, here's Doomslug. Another virtual world is NearHub.club, and you might be familiar with NearHub.club because Marama J has several worlds in here already where you can hang out, check out different activities, and you can do utility around this too. So you can have token gated rooms here where you're not allowed in unless you hold an NFT, things like that. So that's another common utility with NFTs, is being able to gate content, give people permissions based on the NFTs that they hold, things like that. You can also have your avatars in here as NFTs. So that's another really cool use case. It's kind of like seasonal fashion. You can use NFTs for that kind of thing. So the virtual worlds are a really interesting way of adding utility and context for NFTs. Also, there's more flat virtual worlds, things like 1 million NFTs and Pixel Party, where each one of these squares on the board are an NFT, and they allow you to edit the content of that. So that's another interesting value. So kind of like the idea of land as an NFT. Chloe's mentioning houses as NFTs. You can also do land as NFTs, whether that's virtual land or real world plots of land. And that's it for virtual worlds. Then to move on to gaming. So gaming is very fun. Marma J Gaming is already a great place to go learn about a lot of the different games that you can play on Near that take advantage of NFTs as assets inside of the games. NFTs can also be used for badges and achievements and kind of like credentials around your play. And they can also be used for in real life credentials, things like Not a Bot, and around the NDC elections, there was NFTs that represented the fact that you had your proof of personhood. So NFTs can also be used for things like that. On the gaming front, there's also the Gaming DAO, where you can keep up with contemporary things happening around the Near gaming ecosystem and how NFTs fit into that. Zomland is a game that is on Near and other chains, and it's a collectible card game. So this is a game where each one of the cards is NFTs, more utility around NFTs. Worth checking out if you like collecting and trading cards. And then another game that kind of fits into the virtual world stuff too is AI Land, and they have a full 3D game where the characters you are in the game are NFTs. And then we've got games like Pumpopoli, playing around with this idea of real estate, and things like kind of combines with the idea of the earlier staking contracts, so combining land ownership, house ownership, virtual worlds, and staking for being able to min-max your pumping. And there's a lot more games to explore. Can't go into a lot of detail on all of them, so we'll move on to some of the other communities that happen around NFTs. And one of my favorites is the NearChan DAO, which started as a guild way back in the day. And the idea here is that the guild or DAO, everybody who's involved in it, owns NearChan collectively. So well, there are NearChan NFTs. The actual IP and the likeness of Near is owned by the DAO, and she's under the Creative Commons, which means that anybody can reuse and remix and draw her. So hundreds of artists have brought NearChan to life, and we can see that in the gallery if the images load, maybe not. But the idea here is that it's a character owned by lots of people, and it's a vibrant community that's still alive and around and kicking. And if you're interested in some of the more creative uses around NFTs, like this is one of them. And another community that has formed around some NFTs, like this started as a fungible token, the Shih Tzu community, and then they recently launched an NFT to go along with their fungible token. So a lot of these communities and dApps take advantage of all of the available mechanics to bring their communities to life. So for example, NearChan doesn't have a fungible token yet, alpha maybe. Shih Tzu Apes started as a fungible token and then moved into the NFT space. And then they can do collaborations with more artists, and can have more for their community to do by having these NFTs and trading them across the marketplaces. So zooming out a bit from kind of these granular bits and looking at the overall ecosystem with NFTs, there are a lot of analytics platforms that allow you to kind of dive into these things. For example, we saw on Tradeport that there was some analytics around NFT sales. Flipside is another great place where if you're interested in kind of seeing the overall ecosystem of NFTs and asking questions about it, like what's the most expensive NFT that's ever sold, or how much do people spend on NFTs in general, or how's the trajectory of usage of NFTs, things like that. Flipside lets you ask those questions and build dashboards around those. So which NFT collections were popular in Q1 of 2024? People were really into the Neko Genesis plushies. And Neko is another community where with their cat tokens, you can stake them and earn more of this Neko. And they also did this plushie where if you bought this NFT, then you would get an actual stuffed animal. So that one was pretty popular because everybody wanted a cute stuffed animal. And another really, really popular NFT tool on Near is Shardog. And what Shardog does is allows you to create drops where people can claim your NFTs for free. If you've ever interacted with the Near Week NFTs that come out, Near Week does an NFT every week of the cover for their issue, and you can claim it if you put in your email address and are subscribed to the Near Week newsletter. Then you can claim that NFT for free and kind of like show over time that you've been a fan of Near Week, and that can be used for other things in the future like airdrops or other utilities. So Shardog is a really popular utility for that. You can see that 500,000 people have claimed Shardogs, or 500,000 shard dogs have been claimed. Most people only claim like 2 shard dogs, so that's actually quite a number of people that have claimed shard dogs. If you look at the total number, most people only get 2. Half of the 500,000 is about 200, 300,000. So have a lot of people using this for doing activations. Really worth checking out if you want to do some free drops or be able to easily get into NFTs and claim and start collecting. Shard Dog is really cool, and Flipside lets you see it. It's kind of the folks that have been doing the most claiming, people who have had the most success with their drops. Some familiar names on there like Harvest Moon, which is another kind of like clicker game that's on Near, did their drop for the assets, the NFTs that let you play their clicker game, were dropped via Shard Dog. So Flipside, great place to start digging into the kind of like insights and the data around Near NFTs. And then even more high level is like dApps Radar, which shows you overall kind of like how dApps are doing, and some of those are NFT dApps. The most popular dApp in the world by unique active wallets. They just released NFTs. We saw them earlier, those double dogs. So inside of the hot game and wallet, they now have like NFT drops. And then there's other games on here, other NFT projects on here. So this is a very high level of the analytics of how NFTs are going around the Near ecosystem. And it's a good place to watch just so that, you know, if something does blow up, you can kind of see about it early and notice it here. And then when it comes to analytics, sometimes you can, you know, use things like Flipside, get into the SQL, and if you know exactly what you're doing, you can get what you want. There's also inside of the Mint-based wallet, there is this AI functionality, and what this does is it allows you to ask questions using natural language about NFTs and statistics around NFTs. So if you go to wallet.mintbase.xyz, you can use the AI functionality here to ask questions in natural language about NFTs. And that's another really cool way of getting into the analytics and the information that's available, all that on-chain data, and making it relevant and really kind of like relatable through AI. So it's really cool to have that built right into the wallet there. And then that's kind of like wrapping it up for me. No presentation is complete without, you know, a drop. So I'll be pasting links for everything that we just went through. I'll paste those in the channel so that if there was anything that you saw and you want to dig deeper into it, all of those links will be there, including these claims. And as a special treat, this script was run and it has every single drop that was created with the Mint-based wallet. So if you want to collect a bunch of NFTs, we don't just have one drop today. We have a lot of drops. And if you want to create your own drop, that's another thing that you can do really easily inside a Mint-based wallet. Permissionlessly, you can just create your own drop with your own art and share your NFT, or you make a calling card like your business card. You can make an NFT of that and share it right in Mint-based wallet. So that's something to go check out as well. And that's a wrap. I've been going for almost 30 minutes, so I'll leave it at that. If you want to stay connected, my favorite place right now is Farcaster, which is a permissionless network. It's based on a gossip protocol, so it's chain agnostic, and it's all about DWeb, decentralized. This is my favorite place to hang out these days, as Twitter kind of gets more and more restrictive with the things that you have to pay for and how you have to pay to be visible. This is a network where it's permissionless, and you can actually make your own clients and everything as well because of that. So if you want to hang out, give me a ping there. And yeah, I'll leave it at that. If there's any questions,
awesome.
Yeah, let's go. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing with us. I did also add some of the links as you were speaking, but please, I know you might have a more organized list or you have them all, so that's great. So we can show them to other people as well. But I just want to say thank you again, Jordan. I learned a lot as well. So you're saying you were learning some stuff while you were doing it. I learned a lot as I was listening, so very much appreciated. And yeah, if anyone has questions or comments, please leave them in the chat or you can ask now. And as Jordan or Stopars has said, you can reach out on Farcaster, I'm sure in the future, and ask questions if they come up later. Okay. I am sorry, gonna quickly come back here just for a second. I will check the chat, see if we have Nedlar typing as well. So if you have a question, Nedlar, please feel free to keep typing it out. Quickly, just while we end up, while we have everyone here, I did want to go over the homework for today. So Jordan did say that you can create a mint-based drop pretty quickly and easily. So for the homework, we're just minting an NFT, whatever NFT you would like. I think the mint-based drop is one of the simplest ways to do it. You can pretty much drop, there's a whole guide here for how to do it. But you can just use drag and drop whatever image you'd like. As long as you're logged in, you create the drop within 2 clicks. So definitely one of the easier ways to mint an NFT. If you also like drops and maybe you want a less mobile first version, Mint-based is relatively mobile first. You could also use KeyPalm. KeyPalm, this is great. Oh my gosh, what a wonderful list. This is wonderful. Thank you, Starbucks. So pretty much with KeyPalm, you could drop tokens. So if you want to do a near token drop and an event, you can do that. But you can also select NFT. This is the same technology that ShardDog uses from what I'm understanding. So if you're a developer, you can use their SDK and use the documentation, but you have to log in to do this. And I am not logged in currently, but you can just create a drop, and it is as well very straightforward. You drag and drop, and then you're good to go. Share your drop, and it's a little bit less mobile first. Instead of only using the Mint-based wallet, mostly KeyPalm allows users to use the wallet selector so you can use any wallet, Here Wallet, I guess not Near Wallet, but My Near Wallet and the like. You could also just go directly to paras.id. You can create a collection and you can mint right away that way. So if you have questions about how to do this, there should be the ability you can ask for support in the chat, but it's relatively straightforward. You log in, you create a collection, and you create an NFT on top of it. And then probably the most complicated way to get started would be to mint directly on Mint-based, because you do need to have a contract or be added as a minter to someone else's contract, which can add extra friction for people. But for the end of this class, every student here is going to have to be added to the Minters tab. So when you go to the Near Research Collective Mint-based store, nrc.mintbase1.near, you can see we have quite a few minters here already. So these are all the minters that currently exist on the store, and every student here who is planning on submitting a project for this class must be on the minters section. Okay, so just trying to be very clear with this. You must be a minter on here so you can mint your project. So over the next couple of weeks, please feel free to work with the Research Collective DAO, right? Because the Research Collective, not the DAO, we actually switched that. So please work with the Research Collective Council of the DAO to add you as a minter. This is the account that can add you, and this is managed by the DAO Council. So if you're already a minter, so for example, Plata, you're already here as a minter. People in this class, you might already see yourself. That's great. If you do not see yourself as a minter, please speak to the council and get yourself added. So that's the homework for the week. Mint any NFT on Near, share it in the chat, and there you go. Super simple, nothing too complicated for now, and we'll keep discussing for next week. Also, I'll be going through the projects again once more today. If you do still have a tick beside your name, sorry, I will be skipping over it. So I'll check one more time in a few hours. If there's still a bunch of comments, I will skip over it. But as long as you've gone through your comments, so there's about 5 or 6 of them, and I'll go through those today. So again, thank you everyone for coming up to the class. Hope you have a wonderful rest of the week. We'll hopefully see you Friday for our weekly Insights Forum. And thank you once again, Starpause, Jordan. These links were great. The presentation was wonderful. I learned a lot, and so glad to have you on teaching this class, helping us teach. Okay. Thank you, everyone, and talk soon.
Thank you. Take care.